Join me as I challenge myself to stop role-playing and start shadowdarking in 2024. Yeah, I mean roll with two L's. Let's get into this. So, Shadowdark is an amazing game made by Arcane Library. There's tons of videos on my channel that go over it. There's no reason for me to dive into how it works, but I want to talk about how games like this new renaissance of old school role-playing, has changed my ideology of how I GM and how I play games. There's a video that came out recently, and I feel like this summarized something that was really important to me. This is a scene from Black Lodge Games, and it's a scene from Critical Role. I'm going to play this opening piece only, and then we're going to talk about it.
He laughs uproariously.
Look at me. This is not who you are. This is not who you are! Who am I? You're not this!
Why isn't my game as dramatic as this? Why?
That is 100% an amazing question to ask. And he dives into this, and I'll put the video below. I highly recommend that you watch it. But I believe there's more to it than that. I believe, and this may be just me, the less you roll dice in a game, the less time that you randomly roll this d20, the more likely you are to have better role-playing or performing or whatever word you want to use in your game. I come from a background of tabletop RPGs, and I come from I guess a long history of playing all the editions of D&D. And over the years, we've watched as D&D, Pathfinder, many other games in this era, nothing wrong with the companies, but they became way more rule demanding. Even Champions became such a system about making the perfect baked character, the right amount of ingredients to make that hunter that can do X, Y, and Z. But then when you got to the table, you're just rolling dice. I didn't feel like you were role-playing anymore. No, I felt like you were looking for the optimal time to use the abilities you built to roll a d20. That doesn't make for good gaming. To me, not if you want more. So I think there is more to less dice and more asking questions at the table. And I don't mean metagaming. There's a lot of really bad preconceived notions of the problem and the challenge of, at the table, what can a character do? And the reason those are there is because we've been trained to watch other people roll dice at a table, and they ask this question every fucking time. All right, I want to look around the room. Roll perception check. Okay, I got a 15. Does that make it? What do I see? You are limiting your actual ability to role play at a table by always limiting it to a dice roll. And I don't think that you have to do that. I think that you can get away with a lot more, especially if you and the GM have a trust, which you should have at your table anyway, where they can say this instead. Same scene. I walk into the room. I look around. Is there any furniture that stands out? Does it look like the room's been disturbed? Does someone stay here? Do I see any key elements at a first glance? The GM may tell you, yeah, the chair is knocked over, papers are disheveled, they look like someone fell to the floor, like somebody left in a hurry. Well, I'm going to check that. I'm going to search the papers. What do I see as I look through them? Does my character's background play into this at all? I was a librarian. And now your GM can give you concrete ideas and give you concrete answers based on your player's knowledge, your character's knowledge, and your ability to play off of the sheet for most of that scene. The more you're on your sheet looking for a solution and looking at it, the less likely you're looking at the players, GMs, and other assets at the table to make your decisions. So I want to explore something with you in Shadowdark. I feel like Shadowdark solves a lot of these problems very succinctly. And it just comes from years and years and years and years of D20 based games being redesigned, shaved off, and carving it into a more elegant marble statue, or in this case, rule structure. They did a few things that stand out to me in this book that I think I'm going to leave you with these pieces as ideas and kind of a summary of why I think this game can help you be a better role player and less of a die roller. Because, you know, yelling at other characters at the table and the other person yelling back and having that epic moment where you feel it is so much better than rolling a 1 and going, I fucking know what's going on, but guess not. Nobody wants that. So right now, we have this. This is the 9th page in the Shadowdark rulebook. And you'll notice there's no skills. They use an advantage and disadvantage system, which we're all trained to understand. But instead of it being something where you have skills that also keep making a scale that you have to roll on, it's closer to OSR and Morkborg's, but it's for 5e. It's advantage and disadvantage. It's based around that concept. And since there's less rules, you are more likely to roleplay at the table. You have your stats that you know. There's no reason for me to read these off. You understand what they do with this simple description. And you'll notice that checks are only during risky actions. You looking around the room when not under threat shouldn't involve you rolling a roll. If there's a monster in a room and you're in the middle of combat and you want to search for something, that makes way more sense. Or if you're under fire from arrows and you're trying to restring your bow, that should be a roll. But when you're not actually diving into the idea of, can my player character do this stuff? It's you going, I'm smart, I have ideas, how do I funnel that through my character? So this gives you everything you need on it. And after that, we have this, which I think is probably the most important part about tabletop RPGs. We're here to adventure with a group of friends and have fun. In Shadowdark, you're known as a crawler, a dungeon crawler. But this right here, every single player should read, and GM, outside the sheet. The first step to crawling is understanding your environment and imagining the action you want to take. When you're inside of a dungeon, a castle, a mound of grass with flowers all around you making a circle and a dead body in front of you that is decomposing rapidly, you know, you got questions. Those questions should be what you fall back on, not the skills in your sheet. You should be asking about that dungeon room, what it looks like. You should be asking, what do I smell or see? Because the GM can only give you information you're asking for safely. If a GM over-explains a room, they tip their hat. And it makes it so they are describing a picture, and you're like, oh, I'm going to search that picture, when really, that GM was just describing the picture to give you the feel of the room. And GMs, if the picture is not important, just be like, it's a normal picture, it's a gorgeous painting, maybe of value, but over a little glance and kind of running your fingers around it, you don't find anything special. If they keep wanting to double down, that's different. Go ahead, let it, and then turn it into something, lean in. Just like a player should be looking off their sheet, a GM should be leaning into the player's actions. Don't simply scour your character sheet for ideas and options. Your crawling career depends on your ability to think outside your sheet. And for a long time, look, I'm guilty of this. We were taught to constantly look. Anything in our head becomes, well, metagaming. And I don't think that's true. I think if you're a player that is experienced and you fought certain monsters, and your GM has ran you enough times and knows your experience, there's nothing wrong with you going, oh, I've heard about beholders before. They have I-beams that just do a bunch of crazy stuff. And your GM goes, they know what a beholder does. Change 2 of its powers. But you shouldn't penalize a player for that. And now, if they're a new crawler and the crawler hasn't ever fought a beholder, they could have heard a rumor, especially if it relates to their background. Instead of telling that player no, as a GM, you should be looking into a way to engage their knowledge. And if they say, oh, I've heard they have disintegration beams, you go, how does your player know about this? What I know you know, but what did your character hear? I'm not saying you didn't hear it. I just want to know how you heard it. Give me the story. And it lets them, once again, invest themselves, not only into their character, but into the story that everyone's telling together. See, this is already making you a better role player. Instead of go into this, you go into this. fucking amazing, right? I think that's the thing that's missing. We have become so simulationist in our tabletop RPGs, we've forgotten just how to think smart. And I think that simpler, I shouldn't say simpler, elegantly designed games that have taken all of the things out that you and your players at the table should be deciding, those kind of games make you better. Now, it doesn't mean you can't go back to your 5e, your Pathfinder 2e. I'm saying play one of these for a couple months and then go back and notice how some of the rules fall away. Play Shadowdark for a while and see if it changes it for you. Play Knave, play anything that is kind of that OSR style. Really run it the way they tell you to run it. And see if role-playing doesn't become something that is inherent to you as a player and a GM. So I got a challenge for all of you. I'm going to try my best to be doing more of this kind of, I'm calling it the Shadowdarkling way. But I'm going to try my best this year to run more of my games in this style. I'm a very open-ended GM, and I like my players asking me questions and looking for very creative ways to do things. My shows are rated R, and my players are usually pretty, well, they're pretty NC-17, and they come up with crazy ideas that are super enjoyable, not only for people to watch in the audience during a show, but they're also really enjoyable for the other people at the table. So those moments are what you're looking for, those key moments, and you want to take them and distill them and lean into them as your players come up with things. Say less no's, ask more whys. Say yes more, but ask for a reason. There's nothing wrong with a GM and a player having a discussion at the table out of character and then going back in character. So that's it for me. Try it. A call to action for all of you down below. I want to know how many of you have picked up Shadowdark with all the talk we have done about it here on EFP. I also want to know, have you tried simpler rules and what have been your pros and cons to them? Also, make sure it's a civil conversation, constructive criticism, people. If you're a dick, you know how that goes on this channel. You get put on blast. And then I block you, so you don't even get to comment afterwards. Instead, be awesome, be a good gamer, and make good conversation down below. That's it for me. There's gonna be some videos for you to click to watch. I don't know which ones they're gonna be. Who knows? I don't even know when I recorded that or what fucking day this is. But we are trying to hit 500 subscribers here by the end of summer, hoping we can monetize and do some other really cool events here on Erik Frankhouse Presents. That's it for me. As always, watch, listen, learn, be a better gamer, and I don't know, try not looking at your character sheet next time.